The chapter begins and Yuji's hand is in Sukuna's chest. If you'll recall, he just hit a black flash at the end of last chapter, and he has decided that he wants to crush Sukuna's heart. While doing that, he's thinking back on Choso, remembering his big brother. Sukuna then goes to cast his domain expansion, just like we saw at the end of last chapter, and that's when this Gojo figure appears. And Sukuna is standing there in disbelief and wonders if it's really him. But he pushes that thought away, saying that that's impossible. And then, I kid you not, we have a half-page spread revealing that Gojo has stitches all across his forehead. Not gonna lie, I actually thought Yuji and the crew were cooked when I saw that. However, Sukuna, realizing who this truly is, punches Yuji away and turns toward Gojo and says, "I apologize for underestimating you. I didn't know you were capable of going that far. Yuta Okotsu." Yuta Okotsu is in Gojo's body because he copied Kenjaku's curse technique. We then have a flashback where Okotsu decided to have Rika go and devour Kenjaku's body in order to copy his curse technique, which allowed Yuta to change bodies this way. Maki objected to this plan, but Hakari says he has one condition. They're only going to do that if everything else has gone south and everyone else has been wiped out. This is a plan to enact if all other options are gone. We then have a quick conversation between Kusakabe and Shoko, where Kusakabe says, "Can't you copy the Limitless technique from Gojo's body instead?" And Shoko says, "You can't use Limitless without the 6 eyes." And Kusakabe says, "Well, can we just copy the 6 eyes then?" And Shoko says, the 6 eyes are a part of his physical body, not a curse technique. You can't copy it. Maki then chimes in and asks Yuta if he can only copy a curse technique for 5 minutes. What happens 5 minutes after he takes over Gojo's body? And Okotsu says, "I don't know." Next, Mei chimes in with the pros and cons of Okotsu doing this. So first, if Kenjaku's curse technique is of the constant or intermittent operation type, the physical body or the soul can't be maintained and he'll pass away. 2. If the curse technique operates intermittently, he won't immediately pass away, but he'll eventually pass away. And third, if the curse technique is a single-use, one-time technique, he can use Limitless even past 5 minutes. So basically what this is saying is, how Kenjaku's curse technique works is going to determine how Okotsu's copy works with it. Because if Kenjaku just swaps with somebody, and the curse technique is only used for the initial swap, then Okotsu is going to be fine. But if the Kenjaku's curse technique needs a constant upkeep to perform the swap, then Okotsu is going to be screwed after the 5 minutes. Anyway, Mei finally says that after the switching of the bodies is completed, it's also possible that Yuta's curse technique will be discarded and he'll just live in Gojo's body from now on, meaning Okotsu will completely lose his copy curse technique and he'll basically just have Limitless and the 6 eyes. So they don't know which of these scenarios it's going to be. Yuta then says he knows this is a last resort, so first he's going to try to fight Sukuna with all he has and with his own domain. If that's not successful, then he will accept Gojo's body. Kusakabe says it's a good plan, it's just not very humane. And Okotsu claps back and says, "What do you mean humane? We're about to fight history's strongest sorcerer. If we can win just by throwing away our humanity, we shouldn't even be arguing about this. We should do it." Okotsu asks if everyone's afraid of becoming some sort of monster to fight Sukuna, and Maki rebukes him, saying that we're all just worried about you. Okotsu then continues to eat as he starts yelling at everybody, saying, "Well, what about Gojo then? Is he not important? Haven't we been pushing the burden of becoming a monster onto him alone? If he's gone, then who else is gonna become the monster? If no one intends to, then I will." The scene then transitions and we have Okotsu tell Gojo that he's gonna take his body if he falls in battle. And Gojo says he's chill with that because he has no intention of losing and he doesn't care what happens to his body if he does. And this is such an interesting parallel to what Sukuna said to Yoruzu right before they fought. We then have a bit of a back and forth between Okotsu and Gojo about Yuta's bloodline. Recall back in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, Gojo revealed that he and Yuta were distant relatives, both of Sugawara. However, when Okotsu fought Uro, she mentioned that he was a descendant of the Fujiwara. So Yuta says, by the way, I was told that I was a descendant of the Fujiwara. And he says, didn't you tell me that I was a descendant of Sugawara? And Gojo says, it's Sugawara. You and me are distant relatives. But weren't the Sugawara and Fujiwara on bad terms? Gojo says, well, it's possible that both of us are right. So maybe Okotsu is related to both of those families. Gojo then goes on to say that Yuta might have been born under even better circumstances than he was. And I'm assuming he's alluding to the fact of his like prestige, because obviously Gojo was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. But if Okotsu is descendant of both of those families, maybe that's even better. And it seems as if Gojo and Okotsu might be going to train, because Gojo then says, let's see about your cursed energy. I've always told you to be more careful about that. Gojo continues walking with Okotsu and several other students, but he tells them that they need to leave, because he doesn't want them to see what he's about to do, especially because he doesn't know if it's right. He then says that if I lose to Sukuna and all of the old higher-ups, the old geezers are gone. Then Gakuganji Gramps will be the one standing on top of Jujutsu Society. And if that happens, there won't be any more chaos like post-Shibuya incident. So Gojo is basically saying he's gonna go in there and wipe out the higher-ups and tells them y'all don't need to see this. However, none of the students leave, so Gojo once again tells them to go, but they refuse. And Yuta says he won't allow Gojo to become a monster all by himself again. But Gojo says, I can't allow that. And he's thinking back to this moment right here, where he and Geto had their big falling out. He says, I can't let that happen again. I was left behind. I have to catch up to him. The scene then switches to Yuji's friend Amai, who is this guy in case you don't remember, and he's explaining his curse technique, is amplify sugar within himself and then output it in various ways. So Shoko recruits him to the medical team to go along with Nita. And Nita, if you don't remember, is the guy whose curse technique can basically pause damage and prevent it from getting worse. He's who showed up with Todo in Shibuya and healed Yuji and tried to, help Nobara as well. But anyway, they're gonna have this guy try to supply people's brains with sugar to help them when they're trying to heal them. We then transition to Yuta lying on one of these hospital gurneys, having been bisected by Sukuna's slash. Rika is there, and he has used his curse technique to try and prevent Yuta from getting worse. But they fear that it might be too late. Yuta says that he is only conscious thanks to Rika, and he is starting to reach his limit. So Shoko tells him that she's already stitched up Gojo, so once Yuta switches, he has to activate RCT at max capacity and complete the healing of the body. We then cut back to the present, where we basically get an homage to this panel, because Yuta are in Gojo's body and Sukuna are having a domain clash, but both are using Gojo's one-handed hand sign. And the narrator says that Gojo already showed the solution to Sukuna's open barrier domain. And the chapter ends with a gorgeous double spread of this domain clash.